go in with our guest, our other esteemed guest tonight, and who has the lead-in for Mr. Cassius Ali?
Miss Maddie, you have it, or you want me to grab it?
Yes, I have it right here.
All right, let's go with it.
We have a special guest. He's the author, Cassius Ali. Cassius started writing in high school, where he wrote plays, won speech contests, and became one of the editors on the yearbook staff for Barlow Elementary School. He later wrote 2 books of his own for Barlow Elementary School in Plainfield, New Jersey, while studying at the George Street Playhouse. Cassius also wrote a number of shows for the children of Barlow School and presented the school for citywide PTO 2 years in a row. Since then, Cassius has gone on to writing commercials, stories for New York projects, and more. In March of 2012, this year, Cassius came out with one of 2 books he plans to release this year. The first is a poetry book called The Last Word. He chose poetry to start because he believes if you can bring words to life in a poem, you can do the same in a story. Which is why the second book is a storybook with 3 stories in one. There are 2 bullying stories, one from the perspective of the bully and the other from the perspective of one being bullied. The last story is about long-term relationships and some of the things that can or have happened in our lives.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody give it up.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to dive right in. Not with the question that originally. I'm going to get you with that before we leave, but already something that sparked my interest. Number one, I think writing is a talent that not everyone has, and I applaud you for that, because not everyone can develop stories and make them interesting and keep coming with it. But the thing that I heard in your bio that I definitely wanted to talk about was the bullying aspect. Writing from the angle of the bully, I find, is different, challenging, and I'm going to give you a lot of credit for that. How did you develop that? And then give us, what's the side of the bully? We know the side of the person that's getting bullied, but in your mind, when you're writing this, what made the bully the bully?
You know, in this particular story, and I'm sure there's other versions, but in this particular story, it's a young person who, after I don't want to give away the story too soon, but a lot of, outside sources as they're growing up. And, as parents, we tell the kids, don't do this, don't do that. To the kid, that's a form of bullying, and they take that as a lead to let me do that to someone less intimidating, to be intimidating as they are by their parents and authority figures. And he takes it to a level that, let's just say, is the zone he can't handle. And with every choice comes a consequence, and that's just one of the examples I wanted to make sure is out there.
Great job.
Yeah, bullying is something that has just gotten so big in this last couple of years. What's interesting to me about it is that, and as you mentioned, I think about an episode of the Bernie Mac show where little Jordan was getting bullied, and Bernie Mac told him, be like me. Told him, I don't play. He told him to do all this stuff. So he went to school. The people who were bullying him, scared him off. But then he became a bully. He was bullying kids that were a little weaker than him. So one of the things that I'm wondering, being that you're an educator, how do you actually teach kids about bullying without creating more bullies, but also with avoiding that whole sense of the bullying aspect? Because it's a lot bigger now, and the more things go under bullying now,
Well, first I got to point out I'm actually a custodian who has done many different projects with the kids. So my free time that I haven't gotten paid for, I just love to do it. For my personal story is one with coming up without having a whole lot of your necessities, like a home for most of the time, eating, and a whole bunch of things like that. So, and I was very shy. So I used the performing arts to help me express what needed to be said, and it also gave me my vision on what I wanted to do with my life. And I've also realized that I have no limits. If you believe it, you can achieve it. And that's what I taught to kids. I had a group of, at Barlow is where I first started doing this, and that was years ago. We put on plays, which I also acted with them. And you'll find a lot of excerpts from those shows on my website on YouTube. Just type in Cassius Ali. But how do you handle a bully without creating another one? Communication. Talk to them. Try to relate to them. Find out what's going on with them. It doesn't always work. Everybody's different, and there's different techniques in each situation. But communicate. Like, for example, let's talk about the victim first. There are some principals at schools that I've dealt with through my kids who literally chastise the victim of being bullied, you know, as they would the bullier, because that person's going to respond and do this and that, basically punishing them before they do anything.
Interesting.
In my opinion, that just messes with the whole kid's whole state of mind. Wait, I'm being bullied here and I'm being chastised by you. What am I supposed to do? You know, duck and cover? No, that just won't work. Because I explained to the administrator doing this, that's not how it works. You don't treat my child or this one or that one, you know, after being already. No, show them that the bully needs to be put in their place and corrected on their behavior. Then, if my child does something, then it's his turn. But you don't punish or give the wrong, again, communication.
Right. But you know, the first thing I thought about when you were mentioning that, I was thinking about the fact that you don't want to have kids being tattletales, right? You say, you know, don't go telling on anybody, right? But also, you try to teach your kids to defend themselves as well, you know? So that's, to me, that's kind of like, that's what makes it so difficult, because don't get me wrong, I wasn't in a situation, so I don't know exactly what that principal was saying, but I'm just wondering how much of that was, and maybe in that principal's mind, thinking that they were encouraging the kid to maybe defend themselves, you know.
Well, in my opinion, the principal really was a little bit left field on what was really going on.
Okay.
The child in question was being bullied by two people.
Okay.
And it was just this lone kid. How can you jump on him after two people were just... That just didn't make any sense to me. So that's why I stood up for the kid in that direction. I just think that's not how you should do it. I mean, I worked with kids for years. I worked with kids when I was a kid. And the idea is, again, you got to communicate, because if a child doesn't know he's doing something wrong, they're going to keep doing it.
Right.
If they find something positive out of taking someone else's, if they get a reward for, you know, intimidating somebody, then they're going to keep doing it.
Right.
They have to learn, one, there's consequences to your actions at any age, in any fashion. That's why we have prisons, but there's a lot of people who go to prison mad, not figuring, it wasn't my fault I'm in here, this shouldn't be happening to me, because nobody ever stopped and said, did you realize by breaking the law there's a consequence, and there will be reactions to your actions? Right. You know, communicate. And if you're willing to make that choice, you got to be willing, Beretta, who's also living that same thing. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Love that show. Love that show. That little bird. What was that bird? A pigeon?
A parrot.
Yeah, it was a parrot. Very cool.
Cockatiel? I don't know. I love that bird. He was cool.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, let me ask you, now, this is a book of poetry, correct? Now, I'm actually working on doing something like this myself. I'm very curious to the inspiration behind what you put in this book. And if you decided not to put certain things in this book, why did you decide not to?
Well, first, there's over 100 different selections in there on many, many different subjects, and the inspiration behind it was life experiences. There's fact and fiction in those poems. They're meant to inspire those that come from situations similar to mine, that had without, got their feelings hurt, didn't have but one parent, let them always hit the home run, not picked on a team, lost somebody special to them. There's a whole lot of expressions and points in there about that. What I didn't put in there was curse words and things like that, because you don't need that to get your point across. You don't need that to express yourself. And you do want to express yourself in a positive light, because you want someone to look up, not down, because that's where you're going to end up if you put someone down to feel good about yourself, in my opinion.
All right. Now, one thing that during the course of this interview, like I said, I'm learning as I go. In dealing with your child, I'm sorry, Miss Maddie has some delicious birthday cake here. But I'm learning as we go. And in a lot of cases, we all know kids. And life is such, where you have some children that come up on the quote-unquote wrong side of the tracks. They may not have had the parent, they may not have the love, and they usually use that to become a bully or become something less than what society would have them to be. Or conversely, there are those that use that as a strength. Now, in your case, with what you just said, how did you use that as a strength? Because I'm sure there's a lot of kids that may be listening, or parents that may know that they have a child in that same situation. Maybe a single parent is listening to you now. How did you, as the child coming through from the school of hard knocks, develop into who you are today? Because it seems like you're positive, you love kids, you like talking to them and teaching them message. I'm curious about that.
Well, for starters, in my particular case, when you have no one there on so many moments and you lose your father, you lose this, you lose that, you got to draw your strength from somewhere. I have a very solid spiritual thing that just have always been in place. I found a lot of people, surrogate fathers, surrogate mothers, surrogate, siblings, brothers, sisters, it doesn't matter, because I think we're all here in place, just like we mentioned earlier about the bugs that all have its, purpose. People around us all serve a purpose. I mean, if you don't have your father, you might have a new friend, an old friend, someone. If you don't have a close mother that's willing to give you a hug, I guarantee you, Aunt May will definitely hug you just for taking out her garbage. But you have to see it, again, to feel it, to know it's there, or just believe it in your heart. Love is not something you can touch, but we all want it. So faith was something that, I had to have, and, step by step, just try to make it stronger. And that's what working with the kids was all about, because I think Michael Jackson did the same thing in a different way. With trying to do for the kids, making amusement parks and taking them places and whatever else. Well, the performing arts worked for me to help express, myself. And I tried to share that with the other kids I worked with. And I had parents tell me that I bloomed their kid, that I made them, really, bloom like a flower, expressing themselves, smiling more, and want to do things, because I think the performing arts is a powerful tool to have a kid understand a lot of different experiences that we all go through, because you can be the best parents in the world. You don't cover everything, and you don't necessarily understand, because how many times have we all heard as parents, my child just says they don't understand me, I can't talk to my kid. Well, that's fine, because maybe in that particular situation you can't. That's, again, why communication is so important, and you listen. And I know we get, as parents, too upset with them to listen. It's like, I told you to do something, but exactly. Dad, and that happens a lot. We're not perfect. I know nobody is perfect. That's why we need Aunt May and Uncle whatever, anyone who's willing to try. Every little bit counts. And just try to stay positive, No matter how many times you lose, you just keep trying. Because
and you know what, just because I work in the same building as Cassius, and he's right, because one thing about Cassius, it doesn't matter what kind of day you're having. Cassius walks down the hall, he's smiling, he says hello to everyone. He comes in, it's like as soon as he comes in, he's always smiling, and he just brings a real positive energy, and he's always glowing. And it's funny, because if he's out, we all notice. They're like, oh, yeah, I've seen Cassius, because it's just something about Cassius that lights up our building. And we'll talk about him, like, oh, Cassius, he's this nice. And we always talk about, he always brings our spirits up. And he does. He's just a good, positive person, and your presence in our building, just everything. And that's why when you told me that you wrote a book, and I'm like, oh wow, you need to come and share with us, because I know it's a great book. I have a book that I purchased, and he's having his first book signing this month, and you can tell him a little bit more about your book signing.
Well, thank you very much for saying
that. I just want to say real quick, you hear how the women talking about you.
I'm off the market. Go ahead. But the book signing, though.
I've never seen a black man blush.
April 28th, the last Saturday of this month. The time is 12 to 3 at the Plainfield Public Library. And it should be a lot of fun. Even if you don't buy a book, come so you can come check out the book. Now, a poetry book isn't the first thing that a manly man would want to read. Okay, I've heard that. But a poetry book is, like, with over 100 selections in this book, is 100 different stories. Expressing things, saying things, in going over different memories and so forth and expressions. What a lot of people have to learn to appreciate, that if you, again, can put some meaning in something, make somebody feel something. I mean, I'm sorry, I made some people cry with some of these things, and it's not intent to make them sad, but if I can touch your heart, I feel like I did something, and that's what's also, before I forget to mention, the whole Trayvon thing, I wrote a piece, I didn't mention his name in it, I wrote a piece called A Life is Stolen, because unfortunately that's a tragedy that's happened in the past. This one just got lots of publicity, but and it unfortunately may happen again. So I wrote a piece about the tragedy of, people losing their life unnecessarily and in such a way. Do you guys want to hear it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
definitely.
Okay. Again, it's titled A Life is Stolen. A life is taken away with no justice met. A gun is used without cause or bet. Just a child born in the wrong shade. Still, he was a child the Lord made. We fight one another because of color, never learning to love our brother. Again, a life is stolen, taken by force. If justice isn't claimed soon, there will be more remorse. Am I to be afraid because was born in that same shade? When will this ignorance fade? How can you be brave using a gun on an unarmed child? From my point of view, you're the animal who was lost in the wild. Justice, is there really such a thing? How can you heal from the pain violence will bring? Preachers will speak and leave the choir to sing. Still, it's not enough. Peace of mind it won't bring.
Wow, that was all right.
Thank you very much.
Being that you're talking about your poetry in this book, one of the things that I think as a fellow writer that I'm curious about is, in this book, do you have a favorite poem? And if so, why? And from what you've seen from when you've given out the book to other people, do they have a favorite poem, and is it the same one or one different?
Well, over, again, 100 pieces, it's kind of hard to say one particular. For example, Heaven's Gate is, I had a dream about a very close friend, Mr. Hedrick,
Yeah, Mr. Hedrick.
who passed away. We were really close. And I had a dream about him, and I didn't know how to express what the dream was about. And when I sat down to write, Heaven's Gate is what came to mind.
Wow.
And then there's one, Where I Came From. What we mentioned earlier about not having.
Yes.
Again, the book has a lot of fact and fiction, and it's just to show you that broken homes can tear you up, mess up your perception, mess up your direction, but you have to keep trying. It's an everyday struggle, because those scars that are brought to you at that time growing up, it's a day-to-day thing. Well, so is the healing. It's a day-to-day thing. And that's what these pieces are meant to remind you. You can keep going. There's also a couple of songs in there. Songs you'll find in a church pew as well. And you'll find some pieces like Dark Intentions and things like that from the, okay, let's say evil is a physical being. Well, I let you know what he's thinking and what his intentions are for you in some of those pieces as well. That's what it's all about. But as far as favorite, anyone where my readers tell me that, touch them, that's a favorite. Because it's important to it's like, I touch you, I touch you, I touch you, I touch you, and the lights go on, and then you will spread it or whatever, and then hopefully there will be less violence, there will be more understanding. We have to communicate, we have to keep trying, have to believe. It's not a matter of color that will cause us to fight. And you know what's even worse? When we look the same and we're, well, I don't like what you have, and we got to fight because of some form of, some stigma that says you're not allowed to have this if I don't have it. Or why do you have that car? Why do you live in that house? You're not that special. Why do you play that? I mean, it's just ignorant. Just new ways to find a problem with one another. So,
you know what? I want you to run for president. I'm following you. I mean, the way you talking now, I'm like, catch up, catch up, catch up. I can see what Maddie's talking about. Watch out, Obama. Get ready. But that being said, you know what? Kudos and credit to your thought pattern and everything. I always ask every writer that I know that comes in, we definitely have a lot of authors that come through and everything. Writer's block, have you ever experienced that?
the only time I have experienced writer block is when I'm asleep. because I've been writing for so long, all I have to do is connect to a subject, use an emotion, and let it ride.
Nice.
I also, you know, like say for example, I get so many thoughts in my head at one time. That's my real problem, is deciding which road to take, because I find in my mind so many different ways to go there. I use music. When I play a song and I'm writing, I let the music take me there. You know, and depending upon the song, it's depending upon what goes on that paper.
So if you hear Marvin Gaye, sexual healing.
Wait,
like that.
Wait, you brought that up.
You
I
got
gotta get the glasses on this one.
Very quickly, you're on BKS1Radio.com. We're talking with author Cassius Ali. Yes, and we're talking about his book and interviewing him. It's The Last Word,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. So we're definitely chiming on that. And it's a happy birthday day for Miss Maddie.
Yeah, Maddie.
So she is doing her thing. We're talking about fears before we get back to the topic. But go ahead, Cassius. Read about Marvin Gaye. I got to hear this one.
Well, this one is more a flirty piece. That since we're talking about the females, I can't buy your candy. Okay, and this is for all the sexy females who find it so important to steal a man's attention, whether he is with someone or not.
I'm listening to this.
And that's what this piece is about. You like to show me your sweet cherry lips. I can't take my eyes off your hot tamale hips. Yes, your skin looks buttercream smooth. Your strawberry scent is putting me in a mood. I must say you look sweeter than a candy shop. If wanting you was illegal, you might as well call a cop. Don't blame me for the joy you just caused to drop. I have to tell you, I can't buy your candy. Not now or later. You do look dandy. I have someone who has every flavor I like. I don't get enough. I eat more than Mike and Ike. With you, I will get my fill. Plus, I doubt I can handle the bill.
That's a frugal man.